I bought a laser so powerful it can write on paper. I use this laser to help me cut and weld pipes together at crazy custom angles, but anyone who ever tries this at home, please beware. This laser is so powerful it could blind you instantly. Or start a fire. This laser project started when I installed a giant rain tank in my backyard. I had to route 2 big pipes through one not so big hole, and that meant I had to figure out how to weld stainless steel pipes together at custom angles with watertight joints. I started with 3 different stainless pipes I bought online. I got an 8-inch pipe, a 6-inch pipe, and a 4-inch pipe. Then I figured out what approximate angles I wanted to weld them together at. Then I went on YouTube and found some videos claiming you could simply use a marker and some paper to weld pipes together with perfect joints. I followed the instructions shown for welding 2-inch pipes together, but there was just one problem. My pipes are way bigger than 2 inches. After plasma cutting my wavy line into my very expensive stainless pipe, I came to the horrifying realization that the wavy marker paper trick doesn't actually work when it comes to larger pipe diameters. The inaccuracies this technique created would most certainly not make watertight joints. Thankfully, using my trusty old eyeballs and my plasma cutter, I was able to salvage my initial snafu enough to make it work. I wanted a more precise way of making these cuts though, so I took to the internets. My Googling led me to something called cyanotype paper. It's a specialty type of paper that changes color when it's exposed to ultraviolet light. The color change occurs fairly quickly and it's only about 30 cents per sheet. Since cyanotype paper requires UV light to change its color, I bought a $50 laser that had a wavelength near that of ultraviolet light. The next thing I bought was some eye protection specifically for lasers. After donning these bad boys, it was time to get to work. I started by making a model pipe whose diameter was smaller than the 8-inch pipe by exactly the width of the laser pointer itself. This meant that I could slide the laser pointer around the outer surface of the model pipe and it would cast a laser beam in a circle exactly the size of the 8-inch pipe, as you can see here. Now that I had a way of projecting a 2-dimensional circle onto a 3-dimensional surface, I lined up the smaller pipe at exactly the angle I wanted it to intersect with the larger pipe. Then I taped cyanotype paper onto the smaller pipe so that I could capture the tracing on it. And then, like magic, I wrote using light, and it worked. Oh, how beautifully it worked. Rather than laser marking the paper on both sides of the pipe, I instead used a series of marker tracings and paper folding and cutting to extrapolate the curve to the entire circumference of the pipe. This took a little bit of 3-dimensional thinking, but saved me quite a bit of time rather than having to rotate the pipe exactly 180 degrees and mark it on both sides. Then I used my paper template to transfer the curve onto the pipe with a Sharpie. And then once again, I used my plasma cutter to cut the marks I had just made on the smaller pipe. Except this time, rather than gut-wrenching disappointment, I was met with the glee of relative success. After making this fake plastic pipe model though, I realized there was an even simpler way. So for the final joint, I employed a simpler solution. This time, I taped the cyanotype paper on the larger pipe and just pointed the small pipe at it. I used a laser pointer to cast the light just around the edge of the small pipe. Because the shadow of the smaller pipe would prevent the laser from hitting the paper, I was able to kind of paint the cyanotype paper with the laser light, and I didn't even have to make a plastic pipe jig. Now that all the pipes were cut to perfection, I lined them up with each other just how I wanted them and tack welded things together. Then I used a piece of stainless mesh I got on Amazon to make the sock filter holder. I traced the filter holder that came with my filters onto the mesh and then cut out a ring that would be the correct size. I used mesh instead of solid steel because in the event that my filter clogged, I wanted some of the backed up water to be able to drain into the tank rather than overflow out of the tank onto the ground. This does mean that some of my water doesn't pass through the sock filter, but by the nature of the way the water falls into the tank, most of the water does. Once my filter holder was tacked into place, I made some nice waterproof welds to complete the manifold build entirely. Then it was time to cut a very precise hole into the original plastic tank lid. This had to be so tight that it wouldn't let mosquitoes or even light into the tank. Any light that gets through promotes algae growth and makes the tank water pretty nasty. I used a combination of hole saws and hand saws to do it. Once the plastic cap had a nice snug hole, I put the stainless manifold in place and plumbed my PVC pipes to it using rubber couplers. Here's what it looks like when it's all said and done. And last, I bought a rubber cap on Amazon to make accessing the filter super simple. This is how I clean out the filter. The little stainless pipe in there just lays on top of the filter to make sure the flowing water doesn't lift the filter out of the way. Here you can see there's a bunch of leaves and debris after some heavy rainstorms. And even just using one hand, I'm able to do this pretty easily. That's the secondary filter basket that comes with the tank. And here you can see the camera coming up out of the manifold. There's a dirty filter, and cleaning it is as easy as just turning it inside out and spraying a water hose through it. And again, with just one hand, I can put it back in place, which is pretty nice. There's my little stainless pipe to hold it in place again. And also with one hand, I'm able to put the rubber cap back on with just my left hand, and I'm right-handed. These are the pipes that are conveying the water from the workshop and the house into the tank. This is for anyone who didn't take the time to watch my rain tank video, which, by the way, you really should go watch that now. It's a pretty good video, I think. I guess I'm biased. Anyway, these pipes come winter are full of water at all times. And so me and my buddy installer put some spigots on the low point of each U-pipe right before it goes up into the tank. This way, when a freeze is about to come, I'm able to just drain the water out. But the nice part of the manifold that I made is that instead of just wasting that water, I can hook up a reinforced kind of vacuum-intended line to the spigot, put that into a cheapo Harbor Freight pump, and then just using a garden hose, I can run that up, and I can just place it inside of the manifold. So here you can see the water spraying out. That's just from the Harbor Freight pump running. And so yeah, this manifold has the added benefit of being able to do that, which this is significantly easier than the standard stuff that comes with the tank. And there's a rock just holding the lid in place so I can walk away if I want to go do some yard work while the pump's running. And this is the elephant trunk. I promised you guys I would post some follow-up information to let you know how much water overflows during heavy rainstorms. So I rigged this tank up to that pipe that I call the elephant trunk. Again, that's all from the rain tank video. You should definitely go watch it. But here you can see the line where the water built up. So over the course of the last few months and a bunch of heavy rain, we probably only collected about 30 gallons in this entire tank. So I gotta say the elephant trunk was a success. I just wanted to include that in this video to anyone that was wondering how it went. I promised you I'd let y'all know, so here it is. And that about sums up this project. If you want to support the work I do without joining Patreon or becoming a YouTube member, please spread the good word about rainwater by picking up a shirt from my merch store. Link is in the description. If you want to help me out without spending a dime, please click the thumbs up and the subscribe button. I want to thank my Patreon members and YouTube members for your support. You folks are the reason I can do this. So far, the Patreon family is Song Zhang, Chris O'Brien, Yoan Fitzpatrick, Andrew Quickenden, Timothy Cohen, Al Tyson, Joshua Taylor, Kaylee Adams, Newman. And the YouTube family is Simon Warnock, Jay Smith, Huthaifa Muyad. I want to thank you all for watching another episode of Suburban Biology. We'll see you in the next one.